Hello, welcome to the Onyx Path news on the 1st of October, or 1st of Halloween, as my colleague Ian Watson likes to call it. It's wonderful to be back. Been a while since we've done one of these Onyx Path news episodes. And the reason I'm doing this today is because, well, we're in the closing hours of the Scion demigod Kickstarter. In that, I think, as of time of recording, there's probably about 6 hours left. I would really like to see if we can hit $150,000 within that period. I think it's possible. We've passed 140,000, and quite frankly, it's a game that has surpassed expectations in the target that it's hit. And I say that not, hello, matey truck. I don't say that because I think it's a bad game. I say that because it's the third book in a series. You've got Scion Origin, you've got Scion Hero, you've got Scion Demigod, and it's pretty uncommon in this industry for a successor book to do so well, quite frankly. We saw it with They Came From Beyond the Grave, which I believe did better than They Came From Beneath the Sea. And I put that partly down to the genre. But Demigod being a power level, a tier level higher than Scion Hero, wouldn't have necessarily drawn so many fans, so many customers. And yet, here it is. So the Kickstarter page, which is linked in the video description below, has everything you need to know about the product. So we've spoken about it a lot. Neil Raymond Price, the fantastic developer of this RPG, he's a really talented individual, never receives nearly enough credit for all of the things he contributed to this industry, but not just that, but this game in particular. He has put together a wonderful team that have in turn put together a wonderful manuscript, which you can access for free. Well, I say for free, for the lowly cost around $5, $10. You know, you don't even have to back for a physical copy of the book. You can go on Kickstarter, back it at the lowest level, and access the entire manuscript and know what you're signing up for. Hello, Lucifer Morningstar. Always good to see you. How's the nightclub going? So why mention it? Well, as I say, it's the closing hours. I'm always very happy for my colleagues when they get a product to do so well. Scion is a game that I haven't touched as a creator. I've ran it plenty of times. I've even ran it on the Onyx Path cast, which you can check out. That's our podcast. I ran it for Eddie Webb and Dixie Cochran. I am back running my Scion dark game. What was it called? The Scion Noir. I did have a name for it that I used on this channel. Tokyo Noir. That's it. I got it confused with Tokyo Dark there, which is a fantastic storytelling game, visual novel, as it were. And now that Demigod's manuscript is out in the wild, I can start incorporating points from that too. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Scion, and yet I'm not a creative behind it. And so it means I can be excited for an upcoming release without having a personal stake in how well it does. So yeah, I'm just really pleased to see how well it's doing. If you haven't checked out, what are the chances of a playthrough for Demigod? Well, in fact, we've got one going on Red Moon Role-Playing right now, John. I don't know if I'll be running one soon, but if you go on redmoonroleplaying.com or their YouTube channel, we have got an actual play being run by Neil, the developer, for a fantastic team of players, one of whom is Craig from the Red Moon Role-Playing team. One of them is Jenny, who played with me in my They Came From Beyond the Grave actual play, and the other one is Christian, who is on YouTube as the Primogen. He does a lot of Vampire the Masquerade videos. And that's gone really well. So yeah, do check that actual play out if you're interested to see how Scion plays. But I will say that you are kind of running out of time. If you want to check out the manuscript in full, if you want to watch those actual plays, it might be an idea to only watch for a little while, scan through the manuscript, because there's only about 6 hours left on the Kickstarter as of time of recording. So by the time you get to the end of all of these things, you may have missed the Kickstarter. So do back it while you can. Now, you will have noticed that the title for this stream isn't the Scion Demigod Kickstarter is coming to a close today, although it is. It's actually the Onyx Path news for the 1st of October. And there's actually a lot of news that we have out of the coffers of Onyx Path. such as new additions to the upcoming schedule, which you can check out on the onyxpath.com every single Tuesday morning. That's when I check it out. I've got a calendar reminder. It keeps me in touch with everything that we're doing as a company. I can quite happily confirm they came from Camp Murder Lake is on the schedule, which is the first sort of full-fledged source book for a They Came From game. We've had our books of ready-made characters, our scenario books, and our bestiary books. They're all being made too, but They Came From Camp Murder Lake is the upgrade to the 1980s of They Came From Beyond the Grave. So it deals with slasher movies, as the name implies. It's almost specifically built for one-shots and sequel games. And I think that it's really going to capture some imaginations. I can speak for the team when I say that they're all very enthusiastic about it. It's always wonderful developing a project, and all of the writers know the subject matter so well that they're excited to start working on it. There's definitely a difference in jobs or assignments when you're working in the creative field of RPGs or any other creative field. The jobs you do because you need to do them, and the jobs you do because you love the subject matter. And I'm pretty damn confident that everyone working on They Came From Camp Murder Lake is very excited about the subject matter. Brian Autry says the interviews Neil did with 307 RPG and 2D10 podcasts were especially insightful. As a long-time super fan of the Scion editions, I am very satisfied with all the work Neil and co have done on second edition. That's a really nice thing to say, Brian. And yeah, he was also interviewed for the A Bunch of Gamers group, who have also done a Scion Demigod actual play. Vorpal Tales did Scion Demigod actual play as well. But yeah, Neil and the team are behind Scion. I mean, I could say this about anybody in the industry, but it's, I think, particularly true of Neil and the Scion team. They came up with the story path system, they and the Trinity team, the minds behind it all. And it's no small thing to come up with a system from scratch and make it workable for multiple game lines. I think that's the trick here. That's the thing that a lot of people maybe don't realize, that the story path system doesn't just work for Scion and Trinity and the different tiers of Trinity and They Came From and Dystopia Rising Evolution, but it also scales, to use a story path term, for different levels of play. Characters from They Came From are very unlikely to bump into characters from Scion, but theoretically they could, using the system. Not only that, but the story path system allows for you to play demigod level characters all in the same world as people at origin level, and aberrants all in the same level as the Trinity core. So I think that is really a testament, not just the system, but also the people behind the setting who have managed to merge all of that together and somehow make it work. I don't mind saying that that is sort of beyond my ability as a creator. I may have some good ideas sometimes, but I've never gone in, invented a system with a team, and just sort of took it to town and made it work. But Neil and the rest have managed it, so all kudos to them. Hello, Christopher O'Neill. Good morning to you, and I hope you are well. Hope all of you are well, actually. I know there's some interesting times right now in the world, but I can tell you something a little more interesting, and that is an upcoming project that we've got. Probably, I mean, I know I said I was excited about They Came From Camp Murder Lake, but I am possibly even more excited by the Frostlands of Fenrilik. So you may not have heard of the Frostlands of Fenrilik. You may not have heard of the word Fenrilik. You may even be thinking, Fenrilik's a strange word. Why haven't I ever heard that before? And it's a continent that received very little detail in Scarred Lands. So in the previous edition of Scarred Lands, which was for 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons, a book came out that had the lesser touched upon continents detailed in brief. And Fenrilik was one of them. And it's your winter continent, if you like. It's your Arctic environment. Now, the Frostlands of Fenrilik is a continent that won't be receiving a great deal of, I guess, official coverage from Onyx Path. We're not going to be releasing lots and lots and lots of books set there. Instead, the Frostlands of Fenrilik are being set up as part of a community content campaign setting, which anyone who wants to write for do art for, or just create adventure paths for monsters and so on, the continent is yours to make and canonize for yourselves. And we'll be having more information released about that as time goes on. But we've already got a whole truckload of releases for this that people have been beavering away at in the background, and some of this, well, all of this content is wonderful to see. It's all by incredibly dedicated people who are familiar with the DMs Guild, who are already content creators there, or who are already creators for Scarred Lands. And my hat, such as it is, that's not really the done thing anymore, is it? I doff my cap to Travis Legg and his marvelous team, because fenrilik is really quite something special. As John Bartel says, it's a Viking themed content. There are some Viking themes to it, definitely. There's certainly a lot of raiding that goes on the coasts. But what I want to leave to you is to take the journey of our releases and our pre-releases for fenrilik. We're looking to get something launched by around the end of October, so do tune in to what we have on Twitch, what we'll have on YouTube, what we'll have on the onyxpath.com as we essentially ramp up to fenrilik's big release. I'm very excited about it. I love a good in-depth campaign setting. You can see behind me, if I adjusted my camera or my Planescape and Forgotten Realms on the shelf above, and Scarred Lands for that matter. And those are my big three, the D&D campaign settings I've sort of kept hold of all these years and built on. We've also got an interview on the Onyx Path cast this Friday with Jeremy Hochhalter, who is one of the creators behind the Frostlands of fenrilik, and also a prolific DMs Guild creator. He released the Necromancer of Zentil Keep, which was one of the very first Adventurers League official adventures. And so he's a man that knows his medieval fantasy, and he's been a big fan of Scarred Lands ever since the Creature Collection was released the first time around. So do check that out too. Christopher O'Neill says, heard my LARP group is using a Scion rule set, and after hearing your actual play, I'm excited to experience this new to me world. That's lovely. Thank you very much, Christopher. I'm really happy with how the actual play went with the Onyx Pathcast team, and we've done quite a lot of actual plays now of Scion in various venues, and it's a game that really seems to appeal to its audience. I think people enjoy watching and listening to this modern mythology setting where your characters are, as the name tells you, the children of gods. I think most of us, speaking for myself, I came into fantasy, I guess, through mythology. When I was a child, my dad bought me an illustrated Odyssey, the Odyssey. And so my first introduction to fantasy was through the Cyclops and through Circe and so on. And so I got to know fantasy through the idea of the Greek gods, and then, of course, the Egyptian gods. And so there's something deeply resonant with me as a fan with Scion, something quite nostalgic. And I think a lot of people feel that. A lot of children, a lot of teenagers are quite fascinated with the idea of polytheism, with the idea of these pantheons of gods that represent all of the good and bad elements of humanity, nature, the heavens, and so on. And I think on that note, it allows you to engage as an audience when you're watching someone play Scion and you're watching someone play a child of Loki. You have an expectation of how they will play, and it kind of hits a beat in your mind that is deeply nostalgic but very satisfying. So that's just me rambling on about why I think Scion is such a popular concept. And again, Scion's demigod has only got about 6 hours left on Kickstarter, so do back it if you haven't already. I know the postage costs can sting, especially if you're not living in America, and that's absolutely fine. What I would recommend in that case is by all means back a PDF level. Or if you know other people who want to back but have likewise been stung by postage costs, order multiple copies under one identity, because that will reduce the postage costs significantly. The cost isn't it's basically the individual packages. So if you've got multiple books in one, you're going to reduce the cost. So it's just a good idea. Likewise, if you know any gaming stores, or if you run a gaming club and you want to get some gifts, it's a good way to go. Anyway, we've got lots of other comments. I see Brian and Ian are having a conversation in the chat, but a nice one. That's always good. Elaine says tomorrow. Well, okay. So yes, we're talking about the Scarred Lands birthday, which is tomorrow. 20 years old. Good lord. Ray Harryhausen for the win. Can't disagree with that. So Christopher Bounder wants a Sabbat V5. You would need to speak to Paradox about that. Gal says, hello, Matthew. Nice haircut. I wouldn't say it's a nice haircut. It's more a severe haircut that is a symptom of ever-extending lockdown, which, of course, I don't agree with. I don't disagree with. Sometimes you just have to do what you have to do to survive, don't you? And that often entails cutting all your hair off. I have found many times in my life. So what else do we have? On the subject of Scarred Lands, we've got Yugman's Guide to Gelspad. So I was on the subject of campaign settings, and fenrilik being this massive one we're going to be pushing in the future. But gelspad is still what I would argue the core campaign setting for Scarred Lands. And every month or thereabouts, we've been releasing a new part of Yugman's Guide to Gelspad. You can check it out on the onyxpath.com. Just look on the sales pages or check out every Wednesday's blog update, because we link to a new part of Yugman's Guide. And it's, if you're familiar at all with the Forgotten Realms of Volo's Guide to the Sword Coast, Volo's Guide to the Heartlands, and so on, I think there was a one called that. You have an interesting character going around introducing you to the various monsters, dungeons, adventures, interesting characters that exist in Faerun. We've got a similar thing going with Yugman's Guide to Gelspad. It's a really interactive way of getting to know the world, and I think the biggest acclaim I can give Yugman's Guide is the sheer number of story hooks is very appealing to me. I think anyone that knows me now as a developer knows that I kind of litter my RPGs with plot hooks, because I never want someone to read it and think, well, that was good, but how do I run it? I want people to immediately be able to access it, and Yugman's Guide is fantastic. So I would say it's a really good tool for a new GM. If you have only ever played before, then I suggest pick up the Scarred Lands Player's Guide, because that has all your playable families, peoples, spells, and whatnot, and the history of the setting. And pick up Yugman's Guide to Gelspad, because as a GM, that gives you everything you need to start running a story. So Cytheros says, I want those books. Which ones? Name your price. Bounder one says, let the streets run red next week release. Entirely depends on whether Paradox approve it or not. Bounder one, let the streets run red for Vampire the Masquerade is currently with Paradox for approval, so they've got to read through it and make sure they're happy with it, and if they are, they will sign it off, and we will get the PDF out to the backers of Chicago by Night. At that point, they will be able to read through it, submit a errata for it, if there is indeed any, and we will then incorporate it before putting it on wider release. Let the Streets Run Red will then be available through wide release in PDF and print on demand. And although I've now developed a lot of Vampire the Masquerade books by myself and co-developing, Let the Streets Run Red is kind of special to me. I don't know why. Maybe I think I'm just really keen on a lot of the writer's content in that book. It's some of the finest stories, I think, that have been written for Vampire the Masquerade as playable stories, because Vampire is sort of infamous, I guess, in its difficulty to write a pre-written scenario, because it's such a social game, socially driven. Characters won't just go and hit the monster and steal their treasure. They will probably talk to the monster, intimidate the monster, cajole the monster, dominate the monster, turn the monster into their slave, that sort of thing. So it's a game that's very difficult to plan, but I'm really happy with the scenarios and Let the Streets Run Red. So yeah, hopefully that will be soon, Bounder One. Galrukin says, any news about Cults of the Blood Gods or any of its related products? Yes, Cults of the Blood Gods art is coming in. I was in touch with one of the artists yesterday, so I'm getting to see the art as it's coming in. So yeah, we are ticking along very nicely with Cults of the Blood Gods. In terms of its related products, Trails of Ash and Bone has been manuscript approved by Paradox and so is now in editing and art direction. Children of the Blood, which was called The Faithful Undead, has also been approved by Paradox and that is now in art direction and editing. And Forbidden Religions is with Paradox for approval. So yeah, all of its associated products have moved along quite nicely. Well, yeah, you've got the same touch point as me then, Banderone. As for fantasy, my first book was on Greek mythologies. Elric, Conads, and Lankmar. I'm a big fan of Michael Moorcock. I came into Michael Moorcock through Hawkmoon, which I would say is probably the most palatable hero in the Elric, I guess, the multiverse saga. Hello, Scott Banks. Grim Reaper 456 says, hello, I hope your day is going well. It is, that's why I'm here. Lucifer Morningstar says, Exalted 3rd Edition. Yes, lots of new products coming out for Exalted 3rd Edition. And there's movement on them too. So do check out the onyxpath.com, the blog that we post every Monday night. It might be Tuesday morning, depending on where you are, because you will be able to get updates on where your Exalted books are, including the very exciting Exalted Essence. Do I feel, Simon says, do I feel limited writing for a video game Swan Song compared to a traditional TTRPG format? No, not at all. I'm given a lot of creative freedom in both avenues. It is very exciting to be working on Vampire the Masquerade Swan Song. It's my second Vampire the Masquerade video game that I've written for, though sadly the first one was cancelled. But this one is... yeah, I'm very excited to see how well this is received because, of course, a lot of it is going to be in my hands as a writer. So, you know, if you think the writing's dreadful, that's my fault. So let's hope that doesn't happen. Drink the monster, says Lucifer. Okay, I'll drink. You happy now? Farseer says, greetings, sir. I'm a big fan of all your work. Seems that most of the V5 products coming out is done by Onyx Path, except for all of London. So is it likely that most V5 products will be done by Onyx Path now? I know we would be up for doing more Vampire the Masquerade products, but it entirely depends on Paradox Interactive. Believe me, I'm happy developing Vampire the Masquerade and indeed any other World of Darkness book, or Chronicles of Darkness book for that matter. But yeah, it entirely depends on what Paradox want to do. So I couldn't tell you what their decisions are because I do not work for them, and I would assume if other companies aren't announcing it, I probably shouldn't either. Any future books ideas for Hunter the Reckoning or Mage that is planned, or Hunter the Vigil? So we've already got Hunter the Vigil. I think there's a companion for it that is slated to be worked on, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I mean, I'm saying it in a recorded medium, so it may be too late. But something that might interest you, Banda, is Ghost Hunters, which is going to be our next Kickstarter, which isn't Chronicles of Darkness. It's a World of Darkness book. If you remember from the original World of Darkness line, you've got occasional black spine books, such as this one here. You probably can't see it very well. That were World of Darkness books that weren't specific to Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf the Apocalypse, or any of the other lines. They were just World of Darkness books. And that is what Ghost Hunters is going to be. Undoubtedly, it's going to be quite closely tied to Wraith the Oblivion because of the nature of ghosts, but it's a game that could fit in theoretically with any of the World of Darkness games and hopefully scratches that Hunter itch. Have I read Winter's Teeth? Asks Gal. I have. Very good. I enjoyed it a great deal. Lucifer Morningstar says, call me old-fashioned, but I would really like to see the Dark Ages books. I think we have written, well, we definitely written all of the 20th anniversary Dark Ages books that we were going to write. So if there's a 5th edition version of Dark Ages, then I'm sure we would love to write those too and update them. I think the main My main question would be, what would be different about Dark Ages and V5? A lot of people say, how would you convert the system for Dark Ages? And to my mind, I don't think you really need to. The system has always been compatible from modern era to Dark Ages. The main difference was in paths to roads, and that's not much of anything, because in V5 you just change your convictions and chronicle tenets and you're away. But I suppose it would be the big question of where you set it, sort of at what level, what year you set it in, or what era of the Dark Ages. So yeah, I think it would be very exciting. I guess we would have to see what comes down the pipe. Grim Reaper says it's interesting to concentrate on working on the Vampire the Masquerade side of things. Maybe I'm remembering it wrongly. So I work largely on Vampire the Masquerade, but I would say at this point I probably do more work on They Came From games, just because there aren't any other Vampire the Masquerade books that have been announced, if you see what I mean. I'm still working on Vampire. I've still got the Cults of the Blood Gods stretch goes, as I say, in editing, art direction, and with Paradox for approval. And I've still got my video game work, board game work, card game work in Vampire, but I've also got a whole bunch of They Came From games, from the Beyond the Grave stretch goals to jump starts for Beneath the Sea and Beyond the Grave, and now They Came From Camp Murder Lake. So yeah, lots of books coming up there. Yes, so let's see. We've got lots of other questions. Will World of Darkness Ghost Hunters be a standalone? I mean, do you need any other books to know the rules, or is it self-sustaining? It's self-sustaining. Victorian Mage is also coming, and it does need M20 Farseer. Dark Ages Mage would be wonderful. As I say, we've got Victorian Mage, so see if that satisfies you first. Hopefully it does. I mean, we never turn down the opportunity to make a new book, but it is always subject to Paradox giving us leave to do so. Hi Wraith says, hi Matt, good to hear from you. It's Matthew, but it's good to hear from you too. Yes, sorry, you are correct, Ian, but there are rules in Ghost Hunters for how to create your hunters, because as a general rule, you'll be playing mortals as opposed to mages, vampires, or whatnot. How's They Came From Beyond the Grave doing us, Scal? It's in art direction. It's already been edited, so it's pretty far along already, which is nice. Still waiting for Vampire the Masquerade Heritage, says Bander. I believe they're due to ship soon. I mean, this isn't the news for that company, but I worked on Heritage. I worked on it quite a long time ago now, so I've pretty much forgotten everything I put in, which will be good, because it means when I play that game, I will have forgotten what I've written entirely, and it'll be a new experience for me. Brian says, the two books I find myself jumping to check status of every Monday are Trinity Continuum Aberrant, good choice, and Scion Dragon. Interesting choice. I think Scion Dragon is going to take a lot of people by surprise. Simon Angertier says, am I the only one who misses the simpler times of Vampire the Masquerade before the modern era of mobile phones, internet, and surveillance? No, we're all nostalgic. But I think it's a bit of a, not necessarily a misnomer, but a lot of people make this statement that mobile phones take the horror out of horror, because you can now contact anyone anywhere. Well, I can tell you that if you've ever been in the countryside in the UK or certain parts of America, or indeed Europe, it's very easy to lose your signal. And now if you're a La Sombra, you can't use a phone for shit anyway. Bandabon, excellent. Omen Owl says, shipping time frame for Lunars. We don't give time frames, Omen Owl, because inevitably things like COVID happen, and it will only disappoint you. Lucifer Morningstar says, at Blue Moon. Couldn't agree more. So, with that said, I'm going to get on with some other work, and I will see you all again soon. Just to wrap up, please do check out the Scion Demigod Kickstarter in its final hours. I would love for it to hit $150,000 before the end of today. It would be quite staggering if it manages it. Again, the third book in a series doesn't often happen. So if we can get it there, any support you can give is hugely appreciated. And as for your question, Simon, stay tuned on that. It may not be Onyx Path, but there will definitely be a company doing a European City by Night. So, yeah, until next time, thank you very much for watching.